It ultimately doesn't serve a human to have all of your needs and desires constantly taken care of.
The problem is, right, oppression and protection exist on the same axis of behavior.
We're now in a prison camp without walls. We are the prison guards and the prisoners. When you start trying to push that further than it's naturally supposed to go, you start getting into this place of hedonism that then just continually just gets worse and worse, like any addict and any addiction.
You mentioned Nietzsche, and you were speaking about, because Nietzsche believed that we could pick our own values, but Jung believed that we can't pick our own values. They are almost imbued upon us for whatever reason. And I remember reading and listening about that, and I thought that was really interesting. Do we pick our own values, or are they thrust upon us, so to speak? What do you think?
I like to think that there's a phase of individuation from the Jungian aspect is, to me, aligns with the Übermensch in the Nietzschean perspective. To me, that's that point where you basically you're integrating the whole self, the things that you have rejected about yourself in your shadow, and the conscious you. You're taking that all in. You're coming to peace with that, and then you're also creating from all of the wisdom and the culture and your experience of life. You then create some sort of framework. I wouldn't. It's not just I'm making this up now. This is this new thing that we do in, where we just stand on our head whenever we want to agree with someone, doesn't it? It's just like, no, we're taking from the past. We look to these traditions. You talked about that earlier, which is, to me, a tradition is just an idea that worked. So yes, we look to those and we say, because I don't think it's about going back. We can't go back. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. We can't go back to like every like 50 years, there's a swing in the pendulum, and it's just it's always doing this. We're just in that other place, and it's whether we go back again, we swing to the other way, or we, at some point, we end this game of this civilization of the West. The experiment goes away, and then we go back to sticks and stones. Like that's going to happen at some point. We've gotten too smart for our own good, and it ultimately doesn't serve a human to have all of your needs and desires constantly taken care of. That's where you die. That's where men go to die,
Yeah.
and that's just historical. We can see that. So this has never been done like this before. This is the newest version of it, and we're now in a prison camp without walls. We are the prison guards and the prisoners. We think the new game is that we think we're free. Weaponized emotion, and they've lobotomized women into refocusing their nurture aspects of their psyche away from children, and that all of that empathy goes towards social justice now. It's sort of quenching their emotional need, their empathic need, into these never-ending, almost like an addiction.
Well,
It's a never-ending well.
That's absolutely spot on, and that's why we're seeing the political gender divide manifest itself. And the left you're completely right. They've completely and utterly sussed what it is that they need to do. They need to, virtue signal, and they need to recruit the blindly empathetic and use that to garner status effectively, and then to plead sanctimonious and moral. But it's not just the empathy, it's I was speaking about this the other day. When you look at sort of tribes, you find that men are more tolerant of outsiders of the tribe than women, and they're more tolerant of low status tribe members. And I think maybe the reason that could be is because the more low status members there are, the higher up you can be. Whereas in certain studies, not all studies, they found women were more likely to want to, extradite and to eradicate certain tribe members who weren't acting in the way that they believed they should have been acting. And a lot of that is, I was speaking to a girl the other day, and we were talking about ideology and how universities are swept up in ideology, and she was fighting against it. She calls herself the anti-woke feminist. And she said, I don't understand why so many women just go along with all these spurious ideas. And I was like, I think there's three reasons that we face ourselves. One is women are temperamentally more agreeable. Like a lot of this Peterson stuff, but the other one is me, more agreeable. So they want to keep the peace, makes sense. Anything is seen to be out of the ordinary, track it, don't like that, let's eradicate it through safety. And then the other one is fear, which I guess sort of seeped into what I just said. And I think fear is potentially more powerful than agreeableness, actually, because if you make people scared of something, and women so complicated, we've made women feel so vulnerable now because they are vulnerable inherently, and we've convinced them that the problem is, right, is oppression and protection exist on the same axis of behavior. It's just, they're like, oppression is an extreme version of a protection, or a perceived extreme version of a protection. So we've navigating that, and you could just say you're being oppressed. Well, actually, maybe you're being protected. Maybe there's a reason. And obviously that brings up different issues. But going back to the other point, so that the fear is really, if you fear monger, and you touched on it earlier, I'm going to speak to someone about the climate change. She was a climate activist, and now she's basically campaigning against the climate scandal, and saying, you guys, this is actually what's going on. So fear is powerful. And the third reason is hypergamy. I think women's hypergamous nature makes them more obedient, because they need the people that they look up to, they follow and submit to. And if you create all three of those things together, if you can manifest and manufacture an environment that satiates all three aspects of that, you create an environment where they're basically at your beck and call, and they will do what it is that you need them to do. And there's a fourth aspect, which is another Peterson thing, and I've read into a lot of it, and this is really weird. Mass psychogenic illness, MPIs, they're all women. It's always young women that get impacted by mass psychogenic illnesses.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably part of the reason that the things that I just mentioned. So I don't remember how we got into that, but it was the fear. You mentioned the fear. So masculine.
I would also just to add,
yes,
just to jump onto what you just said. Yeah, I would say that it all ties into the breakdown of masculinity, and it's women are no longer, women don't respect men on an individual level anymore. That's why they respect the government, because the government is the daddy, right? The government is the authority that's firing off what you just mentioned, hypergamy, and giving them the answer to their fear is the safety of daddy, which is the government, right? And so all of those things you just talked about, plus there's no men, that they're not listening to the men saying, hang on a minute, that don't give all of your faith to this organization called the government. Look at history. There's not a great track record with governments. And all of a sudden we're living in a world where the government would never do anything like that. And it's like, because we've forgotten about it, because men are not being listened to. We're just being ridiculed. And anytime we drop into natural masculine energy, you just get gaslit and told that you're being toxic or misogynistic or any of these things. And so you end up submitting, and men have just shut down. Men have gone tools down, and the women, it all happens simultaneously. So the women are sort of filling a hole, so to speak, where the men were. And I think this is just really stemming from the Second World War, basically. Post Second World War, what we saw in the Second World War was overt masculinity as an overreach through the Nazis, right? The Nazis were like a caricature of masculinity. They were like, toxic masculine. Hitler was like the ultimate misogynist, basically. They were just stepping in and doing what they want. And so the West won the Second World War, And they said, we're never going to let that happen again. And the antidote to it was femininity. Femininity became a deity almost, pure goodness. And it can't be bad if a woman does it, because they're sweet and sensitive and soft. And that just happened, slowly chipping away to the point where we are now, where we are simultaneously glorifying women for being sex objects and at the same time being told to not look at them and objectify them, because it's all gone into chaos. They have no order around them other than their own order that they've proxy made up of by watching men. They've gone, we can do that, and we'll just do our own version of masculinity, which constantly moves around because they're women.
I think there's a lot to get in there. The ironic thing about modern way that women are being reared nowadays is that where they're being served up to the exact sorts of men that they were told to avoid in the first place.
Exactly.
They're being served.
Exactly.
There's a quote: when you demonize masculine, only the demons seem masculine. And we are genuinely serving this generation of women up to the exact sort of men that they were allegedly trying to fight against. I mean, we have a generation of women that hate Andrew Tate, and yet the Andrew Tates of the world are their biggest fantasy. So, and that's the female romance is really, really tricky. I often think that you can judge the sort of sanctity and the groundedness of a society, the degree to which the textbook, the stereotypical female romance sort of aberrates away from what it originally was. And I think we're seeing a huge aberration, and it's turned into something very, very messy and very, very just contradictory and sort of ironic. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the breakdown of the family unit, and how we've lost grassroots masculinity and we've replaced it with totalitarian masculinity, in the sense totalitarian controls. Yeah, the point that you said about the government not wanting, the government. Why would the government want such things? I don't know if are you a football fan or soccer?
I mean, Leeds, I wouldn't call that
Leeds.
football. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Leeds are a big club. The Premier League have introduced PSR over the past 5 years, which originally was branded as a way of keeping things fair and not allowing big clubs to spend too much money and keeping things balanced and equal. But actually, what we're realizing is it's actually just a way of keeping the big clubs big and the little clubs small. And they branded it up this way to get it through the door. So they used compassion to enact their goal. And now everyone's changing their mind and going, and I think it's going to change. But they're actually realizing that it's hindering people to such a degree that it's just completely unfair. So when people think that big, governments and compassion is a really dangerous virtue, and obviously Peterson talks about that a lot, and I've experienced it a lot because I've worked in special needs schools. And compassion, have you heard of something called Munchausen by proxy?
You ring the bell.
There was basically when parents make their children sick so that they can garner the attention. Always women, always mums.
Okay.
They can garner the attention. There's Munchausen, which is when you make yourself sick. So, but compassion.
The Phantom Thread.
I haven't seen it. There's one called Run on Netflix.
Okay.
Really weird. I'm going to write Phantom Thread down.
No, it's the Paul Thomas Anderson's last film with what's his face that was in There Will Be Blood, the English actor that does all the method.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, it's all about that. The whole movie's about that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely horrible.
When someone's sick, so you can look after them.
Yeah, exactly. So you feel needed, and that's like playing it down, so to speak. And yeah, the thing that you spoke about, Nazi Germany, but the thing is on the other side of Europe, there was another atrocity taking place, which was the Russian Revolution, which no one in the West ever addresses because it's sort of been pushed down and hidden. And we talk about a political spectrum, and there's actually no such thing as a political spectrum. It's more like a political sphere. Mm-hmm. When the left and the right meet, you get Nazism and Soviet Russia, and then on the other side you get well, I don't know what you get. You get probably something like the 1980s, where people were bounded by the traditions that come before them, but they also had the freedoms of the progression that was emerging underneath them. But, you've sort of alluded to it a couple of times. People are just completely fragmented now. They have nothing undergirding them. They have no stable unit that they can then branch out and express themselves in different ways. It's just all freedom. The thing with all freedom is that's not freedom, which
No, it's total. It's total like death. It's death, really, is what it is. Because you need to harness, and energy needs harnessing in order to transmute into movement, forward movement. And if it's just anything goes, there's no contrast to there's no peace without war, sort of thing. There's no war without peace. You need them both, or we don't know what it is. So if you just like, there's only, I mean, I was a lunatic when I was a kid, younger, and I played that out. So I know that was what informed me of all of that, because I lived a chaotic life. I was encouraged to be hedonistic when I was younger. Like you can only stay up for so long on drugs, until it's not doing the thing that you started doing drugs for.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only so many times you can fuck 3 girls in a night or something, or like have sex all night. But it starts to get like the pleasure flips. It's basically what we've just all talked about. Everything's full circle. The pleasure starts becoming pain, because you can't overdo pleasure. There's only so much amount of pleasure you can have until it becomes pain. It's literally like when you're hungry. This is Arthur Schopenhauer, which is essentially the removal of pain is pleasure, and that life is suffering. For an example, you would think about if you're hungry, the pleasure is relieving the hunger, but you can only eat so much. It's a need until it becomes redundant, and then you become sick if you keep eating. So you have to stop, and it's built into the system that you can't eat any more than you need to quench that hunger. And now you're back to life. The relief is the moment of healing that moment of hunger. And so to me, when you start trying to push that further than it's naturally supposed to go, you start getting into this place of hedonism that then just continually just gets worse and worse. Like any addict and any addiction,